From the start, he wore stability like a second skin. My sister's stormy days didn't scare him. He walked straight into them with an umbrella of patience. He learned her depression like a map, marking detours, soft corners, and places where silence was safer than words. That made us trust him, that made us believe. He brought her coffee the way she liked it, one sugar, no cream. He stayed late at family dinners, offering to wash plates, asking my mother about her garden. He remembered details that most men forget, like which perfume gave her headaches, or which side of the bed helped her sleep. Little things stacked into bigger things until we started saying his name with relief, not caution. When he proposed, it felt fast. 1 year isn't forever, but she said yes with a glow I'd never seen in her. They laughed at the prenup conversation, him calling it smart love, her rolling her eyes but signing anyway. They were building a story that looked solid from every angle. We let ourselves breathe. We clapped at their engagement party, toasted their future, and folded our doubts into napkins we never picked up again. He was the anchor, she was the ship. For once, the waters seemed calm. But anchors can slip, ships can split, and sometimes storms aren't weather, they're people. The night our cousins sent the text, it barely stirred me. Come out. Quick drink, nothing serious. I didn't even pause. They did this all the time, two shadows linked at the hip, two glasses always raised higher together. We prayed before they left, like always. For safety, for joy, for laughter, for nothing out of the ordinary. But ordinary has sharp teeth, and promises, I'd learn, are just lies with better lighting. It began the way it always did, with a casual message that carried no weight until later. Come out, quick drink, nothing serious. That was our cousin's way. She and my sister had been attached for so long that no one thought twice. Their bond was stronger than most friendships, louder than most sisterhoods. If one went out, the other wasn't far behind. That evening, the ritual felt familiar. My sister fixed her hair in the mirror, spun once in her dress, laughed when I teased her about overdressing for just a drink. Our cousin leaned against the doorway with keys in hand, already humming with excitement. The moment stretched like any other Saturday, safe, harmless. We prayed together before they left. It was something we'd started doing years ago. Half habit, half protection. Simple words asking for safety. Favor, joy, they bowed their heads, said amen, smiled. The kind of moment that feels like a seatbelt, secure, quiet, unnoticeable until it fails. The door closed behind them, and the house exhaled. Silence grew louder in their absence. I scrolled my phone, washed a plate, rearranged nothing into something, killing time until they came back. I didn't worry. Worry never even brushed past me. Hours later, the phone rang. It wasn't her voice, it was urgency pressed through static. My sister had collapsed. She'd hit her head, she wasn't waking. Details tumbled too fast to hold. The ambulance was already on its way. They'd called 911, answered endless questions, where, how, who, what. The kind of questions designed to pin truth to the wall. I stood there, shoes in hand, heart refusing to settle into a rhythm. The night had split open, and I hadn't even heard the tear. The voice on the phone was clipped. Urgent, not hers. She's down. She hit her head. The ambulance is here. Words stacked too quickly, none of them fitting right in my ear. We drove like people possessed, fast. Too fast, and somehow still not fast enough. The silence between us roared. Every red light felt like betrayal. Every green one felt like mercy. When we reached the hospital, the building glared at us with too much light. Too much glass, the air smelled sterile. Indifferent, my stomach churned. This was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday night. He was already there, her fiancé, sitting in the waiting area, hunched forward, his elbows pressed into his knees, his face a color that didn't belong to living people. He didn't stand when he saw me, didn't speak, just kept rubbing his hands together, faster and faster, like friction could erase whatever was written on his skin. A nurse appeared, words rehearsed, concussion, impact, unconscious but stable, CT scan in progress. They spoke as if they were reading weather reports. My heart couldn't process the language. Then the police arrived, 2 officers in reflective vests, their presence too large for the hallway. In Canada, questions come like hail. Steady and relentless. Where did it happen? Who was there? Who touched her? Was she drinking? Did anyone fight? The officers' pens scratched, their voices low but heavy. And then him, the fiancé, his knee bouncing, his jaw twitching. He looked like he might throw up. He begged for air. The officers pressed again. His lips trembled. I made a mistake. 3 words, too soft for how loud they landed. A mistake, that's what he called it. I didn't know yet that those 3 words would burn through everything we thought we knew. At first I thought he meant something ordinary. Human, maybe he forgot to lock the door. Maybe he pushed her too hard when they were joking. A mistake, but the way his face collapsed told me otherwise. The officers leaned closer. What mistake? One asked, steady as stone. His hands shook so violently, I thought they'd snap. He pressed them against his mouth, his voice breaking through his fingers. She walked in on me. His eyes darted, searching for escape, then the words dropped like shards. With her cousin. The silence that followed was louder than screams. I felt something inside me shatter. My sister's cousin, our cousin. The one she prayed with before leaving. The one she trusted like blood. I couldn't hold it. My palm cracked across his face before my mind even caught up. The sound of it echoed, sharp and ugly. The officers stepped between us. Hands out, keeping order I didn't want. You don't understand, he started. But the rest was static. Excuses. Filth dressed up as regret. I didn't need to understand. I wanted to erase him, erase her. Erase this new reality that made no sense. The nurse's voice cut through the chaos. She's stable. You can see her soon. Normal words. Nothing was normal anymore. He sat back down, burying his head in his hands. Shoulders shaking, the officers scribbled, their faces blank masks of procedure. My own hands still stung. I thought of my sister, lying somewhere in a sterile room, unconscious, her head bandaged, and wondered what version of the truth she would wake up to. Would she remember what she saw? Or would this blow to her skull erase the worst sight of her life? I almost prayed she'd forget. The hallway smelled of disinfectant and dread. When the nurse finally let us in, I braced myself. My sister lay on the hospital bed, pale but breathing. A bandage wrapped the back of her head, and the beeping monitor beside her felt louder than it should. Her eyelids fluttered open. Relief slammed through me, but it was tangled with fear. She looked at me first, forcing a smile, then at him, her fiancé, and her expression didn't falter, didn't twist into rage or betrayal. It stayed empty, polite, like she was looking at a stranger who'd brought her flowers. The doctor spoke with clinical precision. Head trauma to the occipital region. The scans show no bleeding, but the impact has caused retrograde amnesia. She may not remember the moments before or after the fall. Sometimes it extends further back. It's unpredictable. I swallowed hard. How far back? The doctor's eyes softened. She doesn't recall the proposal, possibly more. My sister blinked at the ring on her finger, frowning faintly, then slipped her hand under the blanket as if hiding something she didn't recognize. When I tried to explain, gently her eyes glazed over. She laughed at a joke no one told, stared at the ceiling, and changed the subject. The lights are too bright, she murmured. Why are they always so bright in these places? I looked at her and felt the bottom drop out of me. Was this real memory loss? Or was she protecting herself? Pretending not to remember, so she wouldn't have to live it again. He sat in the corner, pale and trembling, whispering her name like it could undo what he'd done. She didn't turn to him, didn't even flinch. It was as if, for her, he no longer existed. The doctors called it amnesia, a protective gap in her mind. They said the brain shields itself from trauma by shutting certain doors. But the more I watched her, the less it felt like doors, more like walls she was building brick by brick. She smiled too quickly, laughed too easily. When relatives visited, she thanked them for coming, asked about their children, commented on their shoes. It was polished, almost rehearsed. She was performing okayness, a play where she was the star and the rest of us were gullible spectators. When the conversation tilted toward what happened that night, she steered it away with surgical precision. Do you think they'll bring Jell-O today? She'd interrupt. Or, remember when we went camping that summer? It wasn't forgetfulness. It was avoidance so sharp it bled. The ring stayed on her finger, but she touched it absent-mindedly, like it was a borrowed bracelet she couldn't return. Once I caught her staring at it for too long, her smile crumbling at the edges. When she noticed me watching, she quickly said, "It's pretty, isn't it?" and turned the conversation back to hospital food. I started to wonder, did she really not remember? Or was she choosing not to, pretending ignorance? Not out of deceit, but out of survival. At night, I sat in the plastic chair by her bed, listening to the machines beep their steady rhythm. She would roll over and whisper, "I'm fine, don't worry." Her voice was too even, too deliberate. The kind of voice that knows the listener won't believe it but says it anyway. I thought of her history, the way she sometimes disappeared when life pressed too hard. Weeks of silence, no calls, no messages. Depression taught her how to vanish, how to erase herself without dying. What if this was another disappearance, only inward this time? The fiancé, her ex, though she didn't know it yet, hovered like a ghost. She barely acknowledged him. When he reached for her hand, she let it sit limp in his palm. Eyes elsewhere. To anyone else it looked like indifference. To me, it looked like judgment. Like she knew more than she let on. Pretending, broken, both, I didn't know. All I knew was this. Forgetting felt safer to her. And that terrified me more than remembering ever could. Days passed before the cousin called. Too many days. Long enough for silence to rot into suspicion. While my sister lay in a hospital bed, with gauze around her head, the woman she trusted most, our cousin, vanished. No texts, no visits, no explanations, just absence. When the phone finally rang, her voice was trembling but practiced, like she had spent hours rehearsing her lines. "How is she?" she asked. Simple words, fragile and empty. "She's alive," I said, letting the word cut. Then came the speech, clumsy, uneven. "It was a mistake. We drank too much. Things got blurry. It wasn't planned. It just happened." The script of cowards. I held the phone tighter, my nails digging into my palm. "Things don't just happen," I said flatly. "Doors don't just open. Betrayal doesn't just fall into your lap. You choose it, both of you did." She sobbed, the sound was thin. Not the deep grief of someone destroyed, but the shallow crying of someone trying to win sympathy. She kept saying she loved my sister, like a sister. That sentence made my stomach twist. That's the problem, I thought. Family isn't supposed to be the hand that pushes you into fire. Her timeline didn't add up either. She stammered when I asked direct questions. The details shifted, where they were, what they said, who noticed first. She tripped over the story, like the ground was uneven. That's when another thought sank its claws into me. What if it wasn't only about betrayal? What if my sister's fall wasn't just an accident? I said nothing, but suspicion hummed in my chest like a hornet nest. "Don't come here," I told her. My voice was calm but final. "Not now, maybe not ever." She went quiet, except for a single shaky breath that sounded less like guilt and more like resentment. As though I was the problem, for naming what she wouldn't. Family is elastic until it snaps. Then it's just rope. When I hung up, I looked at my sister lying on her bed. She smiled faintly in her sleep, like she was somewhere safer in her dreams. I wished she'd stay there, because the waking world had become unbearable. When the hospital finally discharged her, the doctor's words echoed, "Let her rest. Watch her closely. Memory may return in pieces or not at all." Bringing her home should have felt like safety. Instead, it felt like placing glass on a crowded shelf, waiting for the smallest tremor to shatter it. The house remembered her. Her perfume lingered on the hallway scarf. Her mug still sat in the sink. Her shoes waited faithfully by the door. But she didn't remember the house the same way. She moved through it like a guest, touching things with polite hesitation, as though she needed permission to belong again. At dinner she asked about meals we had eaten the week before, meals she herself had cooked. She laughed at a story I swore she told me months ago. She stared at framed photos of her and her fiancé, smiling, engaged, bright-eyed, and her brow furrowed like she was looking at strangers who borrowed their faces. "Do you remember this?" I asked once, pointing at a photo of the proposal, her face glowing under fairy lights. Her fingers brushed the frame, slow and careful, then she shook her head. "No," she whispered, "but maybe that's good." Her words hollowed me. Was this memory loss or choice? At night, she wandered. I'd hear her bare feet on the floorboards, her silhouette pausing in doorways like she was searching for something. Once, I caught her standing in front of the mirror, twisting the engagement ring on her finger. Her reflection smiled, her face didn't. The fiancé, now ex, texted endlessly. Long apologies, desperate promises. I deleted them before she could see. She wasn't ready. Or maybe she already knew and was choosing silence as armor. The cousin stayed invisible. No calls. No visits, but her absence wasn't peace. It was a shadow in every room. A reminder that betrayal had walked through our front door and left fingerprints on everything. My sister kept smiling, but her eyes told the truth. She was lost in a house she had once called home. And I realized then, sometimes memory isn't stolen by injury. Sometimes it's buried on purpose, because remembering is the greater wound. It happened on a gray morning, the kind that never truly wakes up. The rain tapped against the windows, like fingers urging me to pay attention. I should have known something was off. My sister's room was too quiet. Her bed was made, perfectly, too perfectly. The sheets stretched tight, the pillows fluffed. Her phone sat on the nightstand. Dark and cold. That was the first alarm bell. She never went anywhere without it. I ran through the house, calling her name, my voice echoing through the walls. The kitchen empty, the living room empty. Then I saw it, the front door. Unlocked, swinging slightly with the draft. I bolted outside, heart hammering, the rain soaking me instantly. For a moment, I thought she was gone for good. Another vanishing act like before. Then I spotted her, sitting on the curb across the street, hair plastered to her face, clutching a small bag in her lap. I rushed to her, half angry, half terrified. "What are you doing?" She looked up slowly, eyes vacant but steady. "I just wanted to disappear, to see if anyone would notice this time." Her words cut deeper than the betrayal, deeper than the memory loss. I knelt in front of her, gripping her arms. I noticed, I always notice. Tears slipped down her cheeks, mingling with the rain, but it hurts too much to stay. Every corner of that house feels poisoned. Every face I see, I wonder if it's lying to me. Even my own reflection doesn't look like me anymore. I pulled her into my arms, feeling how fragile she'd become, like the slightest wind could scatter her. "Then don't run from me," I whispered. "If you have to disappear, let me come with you. Don't leave me guessing if you're alive." She shivered, her body collapsing against mine, her bag dropping to the ground. Inside it was nothing more than a sweater, a notebook, and an old bus ticket. She hadn't planned far, she just wanted to test the silence. That night I locked the doors, but I knew locks wouldn't stop her if she really wanted to go. The enemy wasn't outside anymore, it was inside her. Whispering that vanishing was easier than fighting. And for the first time, I realized I couldn't fight that enemy alone. 2 days after her near disappearance, life slipped into a tense silence. My sister hardly spoke. She drifted through the house like a ghost, her smile a mask that fooled no one. I kept watch, afraid she'd vanish again the moment I blinked. Then came the message. It was a folded note, slipped under our front door. No signature, no address, just 7 words written in sharp, hurried strokes. "Meet me at the old train station. Midnight." I knew instantly who it was from. My cousin, the same cousin who shattered my sister's world, the same cousin who stole trust and left only broken pieces. I didn't tell my sister, she was too fragile. If she knew, she might spiral deeper or worse. So at midnight I went alone. The station was deserted, its walls scarred with graffiti, its air damp with the smell of rust and abandonment. The old clock hung lifeless above me, frozen in time. I heard footsteps. She emerged from the shadows, hood pulled over her head, eyes darting like a hunted animal. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "Then why send the note?" I snapped, my anger barely caged. She hesitated, then pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. A photo, my sister unconscious in the hospital bed, tubes snaking around her. But that wasn't what made my stomach twist. In the corner of the photo, blurred but visible, was a man's silhouette, not her fiancé, someone else. "This isn't what you think," she said quickly. That night, it wasn't an accident. She didn't just fall. My chest tightened. "What are you saying?" She looked me dead in the eyes. "Your sister saw something she wasn't supposed to. Something bigger than me, bigger than him. That's why she lost her memory. And if she remembers," she trailed off, her face pale, "they'll come back for her." The words rang in my ears like a curse. "They'll come back for her." Before I could press for answers, she shoved the photo into my hands and disappeared into the shadows, leaving me with more questions than before. I stood in that hollow station, the rain dripping through the broken roof. Clutching the photo, my heart raced with a new, chilling fear. My sister's memory loss wasn't just tragic, it was dangerous. And if the truth returned, so would the threat. Sleep deserted me that night. I kept staring at the photo my cousin had left behind, every detail gnawing at my sanity. The blurred silhouette, the way my sister's face looked more than injured, almost terrified. My cousin's words echoed relentlessly. She didn't just fall. If she remembers, they'll come back for her. Morning came, but peace did not. My sister sat quietly at the table, spooning porridge into her mouth with slow, mechanical movements. Her eyes flickered every now and then, like something inside her was trying to break free. Then it happened. The spoon clattered against the bowl, and she pressed her temples, wincing. "Stop, stop," she whispered. I rushed to her side. "What's wrong?" Her breathing quickened. I saw it. She muttered, trembling. "I saw them. The lights, the shouting, someone pushed me." "I didn't fall, someone pushed me." My heart froze. She wasn't supposed to remember, not yet. "Who pushed you?" I asked softly, terrified of the answer. She shook her head violently. "I don't know." Their face blurred. She gasped for air. But it wasn't her, it wasn't him either, it was someone else. That was the crack in the dam. All day, fragments of her memory began spilling out. Not full scenes, but shards of a nightmare. A man arguing with her cousin. A shadow watching from the doorway. The smell of alcohol mixed with something chemical, sharp, unforgettable. That night, I sat beside her as she slept, her body twitching with restless dreams. And then, around 3 a.m., she woke up screaming. They wanted the prenup, she cried. They said, if I signed it, I'd never see the money again. If I didn't, she choked, clutching her chest. They wanted me gone. I held her, my own fears swallowing me whole. Who were they, and what did money have to do with this? The next morning, a new envelope appeared at our door. No note this time, just a USB drive. My hands shook as I plugged it into my laptop. The screen flickered and grainy footage appeared. My sister, the night of the party, stumbling into a dark room. A man followed her inside. The video ended abruptly, but one thing was clear. This wasn't an accident, it was a setup. And whoever was behind it was still watching us. The USB burned in my pocket like a cursed stone. Every time I replayed the footage, my stomach twisted tighter. The man's face never showed. But his movements, his build, the way he leaned in to corner her, it was all too familiar. I couldn't carry the weight alone. I called the detective assigned to her case, a weary man who seemed to expect another family drama. But when he saw the footage, his eyes sharpened. This changes everything, he said. The next day, he arranged for my sister to come in for questioning. Carefully, gently, with medical staff on standby. She sat under the harsh fluorescent light, her hands trembling as the footage was replayed. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she pressed a hand against her lips. I know that cologne, she whispered. I smelled it when I woke up in the hospital too. The detective leaned forward. Do you know whose it is? Her eyes flickered, fear battling recognition. Then she nodded. It wasn't my cousin. It wasn't my fiancé. It was his business partner. My pulse hammered. That explained the prenup threats. The partner had invested heavily in my sister's fiancé's ventures, and a sudden marriage would have shifted the financial balance, protecting her assets. She wasn't supposed to survive the accident. By evening, the police raided his home. They found her necklace, the one we thought had been lost the night of the party, hidden in his drawer. And drugs, the kind that could make someone dizzy, disoriented, easy to push. When I told my sister, she just sat in silence, tears streaming down her face. Not from relief, but from grief. He knew, she whispered. My fiancé knew. But he said nothing. He chose his business over me. In that moment, the deepest betrayal wasn't the cousin, or even the man behind it all. It was the one she loved most, who let her bleed for money. Weeks passed, the case dragged on. My sister began to heal, slowly, painfully, learning to trust her memories again. Sometimes she still forced smiles, but behind them, I saw strength returning. As for me, I knew the shadows weren't fully gone. The mastermind was caught, yes, but the damage lingered like smoke after a fire. Still, one truth remained unshaken. Family had betrayed us. Love had deceived us, but survival, that was ours. And for the first time in months, when my sister looked at me, her eyes weren't empty. They were alive. Months had passed since the trial, yet the echoes of that night never fully left us. My sister carried invisible scars, her laughter softer now, her trust fragile, her steps measured as if the ground beneath her might collapse again. But she was here, she was alive. That in itself felt like a small miracle. The business partner was convicted. Evidence stacked too high to deny, drug traces, financial records, hidden messages linking him to the setup. He would spend years behind bars. My cousin disappeared into self-imposed exile, humiliated by her role in the betrayal. And the fiancé, he vanished from our lives. His silence a confession louder than words. Still, justice didn't erase the memories. Nights were hardest. Sometimes I'd wake to the sound of my sister crying softly through the walls, her voice muffled, as though she didn't want to disturb anyone. Other nights, I'd find her staring at old photographs, whispering, was any of it real? Yet in those same nights, I also saw resilience bloom. She started journaling, filling page after page with fragments of memory. Some painful, some hopeful. She began therapy, facing shadows she once tried to outrun. And one morning, she told me, I don't want to be defined by what broke me. I want to live beyond it. I realized then, survival wasn't just about breathing. It was about reclaiming pieces of yourself that others tried to steal. As for me, I never stopped watching. Not in fear, but in love. Because when betrayal comes from those closest, you learn that vigilance is the cost of loyalty. The family whispers eventually died down. Neighbors stopped staring, and life pretended to move forward. But for us, the silence was heavier. We knew the truth. Danger doesn't always come from strangers in the dark. Sometimes it comes dressed as family, as love, as trust. And yet, through the wreckage, we chose to keep moving. My sister smiled again, not forced. Not empty but real. Her steps grew lighter, her voice stronger. The storm had passed, but the silence that followed was not empty. It was filled with something rare. Something fragile, something powerful. Hope.